Let's talk about types of tissues. We've previously talked about molecules, organelles, and cells. So this is the next level of biological organization up from cells. Above tissues, we have organs. So today we'll focus on tissues. This is an example of a light micrograph. This is histology, the study of tissues, and it shows us normal epithelial. We'll talk about what that means in a minute. There's normal epithelial and there is cancerous epithelial. So when we can recognize these differences under the microscope, that helps us to see if there is a pathology, to see if there is a disease in our patients. So this was a sample taken from a person and prepared in a process that has numerous steps and observed under the light microscope. There are 4 primary types of tissue. Each of those is further subdivided. So right now we'll just introduce those 4 primary types. We have nervous tissue, which is found in the brain, spinal cord, and the peripheral nerves that come out from the brain and spinal cord. We have epithelial tissue, which is represented by skin. It also lines the body cavities inside the mouth and digestive system. We have muscle tissue, and of course that's skeletal muscle, cardiac, and smooth muscle. We'll talk about all of these in more detail. And then we have connective tissue. So we'll be talking about connective tissue first. Types of cell junctions will differ between different tissues. There are 3 basic types of cell-to-cell junctions. They are tight junctions. These are found in the digestive system and urinary system, and they're going to prevent leakage from one area to another. Gap junctions allow communication between cells. Adhesion junctions are mechanical connections. This is found in the skin, among other places. The connective tissue is defined as tissue that has living cells embedded in a non-cellular matrix. So here we see an example of fibrous connective tissue, and we've got a fibrocyte. And in this case, we've got several different kinds of cells. We've got reticular fibers. That means they form a net, right? Reticule means a net. Adipocytes are fat cells. We've got elastic fibers, collagen fibers, fibroblasts. So blasts are builder cells, and in this case we've got a macrophage. So this is an example of connective tissue proper. When we see cytes, that just means cells, right? And when we see blast, that means a builder. Adipose tissue is a loose connective tissue that consists of fat cells. In this case, the extracellular matrix is pretty small. We can see in the cell that it's basically filled with a fat droplet, and the nucleus is pushed up against the side of the plasma membrane, right? So there's a nucleus pushed up against the side. The lipids are stored inside it, and then the nucleus inside of plasma is quite small. In this case, the extracellular matrix is minimal compared to the other connective tissues. But adipose tissue or fat tissue is considered a connective tissue. Its function is to store energy. It also provides insulation and cushioning in various parts of the body. An example of loose connective tissue, we see some reticular fibers, so these are small fibers, and these provide a supporting framework for organs. So this will be around the spleen, around the liver, and that's called reticular tissue or network. And you notice that it does have a distinctive look under the microscope. We have dense connective tissue. Dense connective tissue, we've got dense regular and dense irregular. Dense regular and irregular. So dense regular, we've got these parallel bundles. That's what we mean by regular. And it's tightly packed. Dense irregular is kind of wiggly looking. And in this case, we've got collagen fibers in that tissue. Cartilage is also considered connective tissue, and there are different types of cartilage. We have hyaline cartilage, and that provides some flexibility. It is on the ends of our long bones to provide smooth movement. To me, this is fairly distinctive because the living cells look like deviled eggs, and then around it we have this matrix, this flexible matrix. Then we've got fibrocartilage, which is somewhat compressible, can absorb pressure. This will be found in the discs in our spine. It does have a different look from the hyaline cartilage. Elastic cartilage looks a little bit similar to the hyaline cartilage, but with the addition of fibers in it. All right, we can see some fibers there. Blood is a fluid connective tissue, So in the case of blood, the extracellular matrix is plasma. Plasma is mostly water, and the cells that we're talking about are mostly red blood cells, shown right here. They've been stained so that the white blood cells will show up. Right? So blood is considered a connective tissue, and our extracellular matrix is the plasma, which is predominantly water. Its function, of course, is transportation. It's going to transport oxygen to the cells. It's going to transport carbon dioxide away from the cells into the lungs. It's also transporting nutrients, salts, ions, proteins, hormones, antibodies throughout the body. Muscle tissue. So muscle tissue can be divided into three types: skeletal, smooth, and cardiac. We will discuss muscle tissue in more detail when we get to the muscle chapter. Skeletal muscles are attached to the skeleton and are under voluntary control, meaning that we can decide when they're going to move. Right? So skeletal muscles attach to the bones and provide movement of the body when we want it. Smooth muscles are involuntary, meaning we don't think about when they're going to act. A good example of smooth muscles are the muscles that surround our digestive tract and move the food through the body. Cardiac muscles are also involuntary, and they are found in the heart. So we don't think about them generally. We can't usually control their movement. Sometimes we can kind of calm ourselves if we notice that our heart is racing, but these are considered involuntary. We don't think about them. They are controlled automatically in our body. Nervous tissue is found in the nervous system, in the brain, spinal cord, and peripheral nerves. We have two general types of cells. We have the neurons, and the neurons have the action potential that is going to go this direction. We're going to talk more about these cells when we get to the nervous system. The other general type of cell in the nervous system is called neuroglial. Neuroglial, and we'll write that here, neuroglial. Neuroglia are the types of cells, are those cells, and neuroglial is the type of cell. Those play a support role for the neurons. The glial cells do not have an action potential, but they kind of take care of the neurons. We'll talk about that more when we get to the nervous system. There's an example of some of these glial cells, some microglial cells that will be doing cleanup. We've got the oligodendrocyte. We've got the myelin sheath that's going to protect that neuron, the axon of the neuron. And then we've got astrocytes as well. And these we'll talk about more when we get to the nervous system. These slides came from Anatomy and Physiology, and that is available in OpenStax. We'll continue with our next mini lecture, which will go into more detail on epithelial cells.